4 seconds. That's all it took. 4 seconds of Karen's lips on a stranger's, and the whole bar went dead silent. Like someone hit mute on a packed Friday night. Glasses stopped clinking. People stopped talking. Even the music seemed to fade away. Corinne pulled back, her heart beating crazy fast. She could still feel the warmth where their lips had touched. Weird thing was, his lips were softer than she expected. That thought made her even more nervous. The tall Korean man just stood there. No smile. No frown. Nothing. Just those dark eyes staring right through her, like he was taking a picture with his mind. Corinne's stomach dropped. You know that feeling when you've done something really, really bad, but you don't even know why it's so bad yet? That's what hit her. Behind her, she heard Veda laughing under her breath. Then came the click of a phone camera. Great. Now they had proof. The trap had snapped shut around her, just like they planned. Hey, before I tell you what happens next, and trust me, it gets really intense, take a quick second to hit that subscribe button. This channel's all about stories that'll make your jaw drop, and you don't want to miss what's coming. Seriously, smash that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. But to understand how Corinne ended up in that mess, we need to go back. Back to the phone call that started it all. 3 months earlier, Corinne's phone rang at 2:47 in the morning. You know nothing good comes from a call that late. It was her Aunt Denise, voice shaking. It's your mama. She collapsed at work. Her heart, baby. The doctors say she needs surgery right away. The next 3 days were a blur. Hospital hallways. Bright lights. Doctors talking too fast about things Corinne barely understood. She just nodded and tried to look like someone who could handle this mess. Then came the number that knocked the wind out of her, $43,000. That's what her mom's surgery would cost after insurance. $43,000. Might as well have been $1 million. Corinne had less than $5,000 saved up. Her waitressing job at that fancy lounge in Koreatown barely paid her rent. She had no fancy things to sell, no rich relatives to call, no options. What she did have was panic. The kind that makes you stupid. The kind that makes you trust the wrong people. That's when Veda Rollins and Sloane Jeffries showed up, acting like guardian angels. They worked with Corinne at the lounge. Been there longer. Made better tips. Had what she desperately needed, money. We can help you, Veda said during their break, sliding into Corinne's booth. Sloane and I have been saving. We could lend you what you need. They weren't really friends. Just co-workers who sometimes shared smoke breaks or complained about the same rude customers. Why would you help me? Corinne asked, suspicious even through her panic. Veda smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. We take care of our own. You do the same for us, right? Maybe it was the exhaustion. Maybe it was the fear. Maybe it was having zero other options. Whatever the reason, Corinne said yes to their $15,000 loan with no interest and no rush to pay back. She should have known better. Should have noticed how Sloane watched her sign that napkin with their little agreement, smiling like a cat that caught a mouse. Should have seen the gleam in Veda's eyes that definitely wasn't kindness. But Corinne's mom was dying. And when someone you love is dying, you don't have time to think straight. The surgery worked. That was the only good news. 2 weeks after her mom came home to recover, Veda was waiting by Corinne's locker before her shift. You're late on your first payment, Veda said, all business now. We agreed on weekly payments. Corinne frowned. We never set a schedule. You said there was no rush. Veda's smile was cold. Things change. We need our money back faster now. That was just the beginning. The payments they wanted were impossible on Corinne's salary. And when she couldn't pay, they found other ways for her to work off what she owed. Cover their shifts but don't take their tips. Take the blame when they messed up. Clean their sections after closing. Give them half of what she earned. And if she even thought about telling the manager, they made it crystal clear what would happen. Borrowing money from coworkers is against the rules, Sloane would remind her with fake sympathy. You'll get fired on the spot. Then how will you pay us? How will you buy your mom's medicine? Day by day, Corinne became their property. Her debt never got smaller. Her freedom slipped away. Her smile at work got more fake. The light in her eyes dimmed. Until everything changed. It was a crazy busy Friday night. The music was too loud, people were drinking too much, and Corinne had already worked a double shift, hers and Veda's, and her feet were killing her in those stupid required heels. That's when he walked in. She noticed him right away. Not just because he was good-looking in a serious, never-smiling way, but because the whole room changed when he entered. People lowered their voices. Eyes looked away. The bartender straightened up like a soldier. The man walked to the end of the bar, sat alone, and ordered without looking at the menu. He didn't check his phone. Didn't watch the TV. Just sat there, giving off the kind of quiet power that made even drunk people suddenly sober up. Who's that? Corinne whispered to Marcus, the busboy who knew all the regulars. Marcus glanced at the bar, then quickly looked away. Don't know his name, he said quietly. But everyone calls him, sir. And the boss always gives him free drinks. Corinne was still watching him when Veda and Sloane cornered her by the drink station. Truth or dare, Veda said, smiling in that mean way of hers. Corinne's stomach dropped. Their games were never really games. Just new ways to humiliate her. I'm busy, she tried, pointing to her tables. Dare it is, Sloane decided, ignoring her. She nodded toward the bar. I dare you to kiss that scary guy at the end of the counter. Corinne felt like all the blood drained from her face. You can't be serious. Oh, but we are. Veda held up her phone, camera already open. And we're recording it for the boss, in case you decide to say no. You'll get me fired, Corinne whispered. Maybe. Sloane shrugged. Or maybe you'll just do what you're told, like always. Corinne looked from them to the mysterious man at the bar. Both choices seemed terrible. Both could cost her job. But one might also cost her a lot more, if the man's stone-cold expression meant anything. Fine, she finally said, hating that she was giving in again. As she walked toward him, her heart pounding, she tried to look confident. Like this was her idea. Like she wasn't scared out of her mind. Up close, he was even more intimidating. Taller than she expected. His suit fit perfectly over shoulders that looked way too strong. His hands resting on the bar were large, steady, with small scars across the knuckles that hinted at violence. When he turned slightly, feeling her approach, Corinne caught the full force of his stare. Cold. Calculating. Dangerous. For a second, she thought about turning around. Taking the firing. Finding another job. Anything seemed better than disrespecting this man. But then she heard Veda's quiet laugh behind her, saw the phone pointed her way, and knew it was too late to back out. Corinne took a deep breath, leaned in, and kissed the scariest man she'd ever seen. What Corinne didn't know was that Park Woo-bin had been watching her all night. And he had heard everything. Corinne practically ran back to the server station, her cheeks burning with shame. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her throat. Behind her, she could still feel his eyes watching her, cold, calculating, unreadable. Veda and Sloane were waiting with matching smiles that reminded Corinne of sharks. I can't believe you actually did it, Veda whispered, her eyes wide with cruel delight. She was already replaying the video on her phone. Look at his face. He looks like he's deciding whether to kill you or hire you. Maybe both, Sloane added with a snicker. Either way, this video is gold. Corinne tried to grab the phone. Delete it. I did what you asked. Veda held it out of reach. Oh no, sweetie. This is insurance. You still owe us nearly 10 grand. Now we have 2 ways to keep you in line. Corinne felt sick. The room seemed to tilt slightly under her feet. What do you mean? If you ever think about going to management about our little arrangement, Sloane explained, her voice sweet with fake concern, this video goes straight to Mr. Patterson. You'll be fired for sexually harassing a customer. A very scary, very important customer, Veda added. Good luck finding another job after that. Corinne turned away, blinking back tears. She had exactly 3 tables left to serve, 2 hours left in her shift, and a growing sense that she was more trapped than ever. When she finally looked back toward the bar, the man she'd kissed was gone. But who exactly was the man with the cold eyes? Park Woo-bin wasn't someone you'd find on Google. His name didn't appear in business magazines or local newspapers. But in certain circles, especially in Koreatown, his name was whispered with a mixture of fear and respect. On paper, Park owned a string of legitimate businesses, an import company specializing in electronics, 2 high-end restaurants, and a real estate firm that had mysteriously acquired some of the most valuable properties in the neighborhood. What didn't appear on paper was how those businesses really operated. The shipping containers that sometimes carried more than electronics. The restaurants where certain private rooms hosted meetings no one was supposed to know about. The properties that changed hands after owners received offers they were strangely eager to accept. Park had arrived in Los Angeles 7 years earlier from Seoul with nothing but a name, his family name, which opened doors and silenced questions before they were asked. He'd built his empire quietly, efficiently, and without the flashy violence that marked other criminal operations. He didn't need guns or threats. His reputation did the work for him. That night, Park had come to the lounge for a specific reason. In 2 days, he was meeting with representatives from a rival organization to discuss territory along the port. Millions of dollars were at stake. Lives, too, though no one would say that part out loud. The lounge was neutral ground, a place where enemies could sit under the same roof without bloodshed. Park had chosen a quiet corner of the bar to mentally prepare, to observe the room, to ensure no surprises awaited him. Then Corinne Vance had provided the biggest surprise of all. Park had noticed her long before she approached him. Not because she was particularly beautiful, though she was, in a quiet, genuine way that stood out among the artificial glamour of the lounge. He noticed her because of how she moved, efficiently, carefully, like someone constantly aware of invisible boundaries. He noticed how she flinched when the 2 other waitresses spoke to her. How her smile never reached her eyes when she served customers. How she checked her phone during breaks with a worried expression that suggested problems bigger than this room. Then he'd overheard the conversation. Park had excellent hearing, a survival skill he'd developed years ago. From his position at the bar, he'd caught fragments at first. Late on the payment again. Your mother's medication. Still owe us nearly 10 grand. His interest had sharpened. He'd watched the power dynamic unfold, the 2 predators cornering their prey. He'd seen the phone camera come out, heard the dare, witnessed the fear flash across Corinne's face before resignation took its place. Most people would have looked away. Park Woo-bin watched more closely. When she'd approached him, he'd already known what was coming. He could have stopped it. Could have turned away. Could have ended the game before it began. Instead, he'd allowed it. Not out of kindness or attraction, but curiosity. He wanted to see what she would do, how she would handle it. Would she break? Would she run? Would she somehow find a way out? The kiss had surprised him, not the act itself, but his reaction to it. The softness of her lips. The slight tremor he felt in her approach. The quiet dignity she maintained even while being humiliated. And something else, something he rarely encountered in his world. Innocence. Not the fake kind that people performed, but the real kind. The kind that didn't belong anywhere near someone like him. Corinne's shift finally ended at midnight. Her feet ached, her head pounded, and all she wanted was to go home, fall into bed, and forget this night had ever happened. The employee exit led to a dimly lit alley behind the lounge. Most nights, Corinne hurried through it, keys clutched between her fingers like a weapon. Tonight, she moved even faster, just wanting to reach her old Honda parked on the street. She was halfway down the alley when she noticed something wasn't right. A black SUV with tinted windows was parked at the far end, its engine running. No headlights, just the soft rumble of an expensive motor idling in the darkness. Corinne froze. Her first thought was to turn around, go back inside. But as she took a step backward, a voice came from the shadows. Corinne Vance. She spun around, heart hammering. The man from the bar, the one she'd kissed, stepped out from where he'd been waiting beside the dumpster. In the dim light, he looked even more intimidating than he had inside. Taller. More solid. His face half in shadow. "How do you know my name?" she managed, her voice higher than normal. He ignored the question. "We need to talk about what happened tonight." Corinne backed up until her shoulders hit the brick wall. "I'm sorry about the kiss. It was stupid. My coworkers." "I know what they did," he interrupted. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried a weight that made her words die in her throat. "I know about the dare. The debt. The video." Corinne felt her knees go weak. "How?" "I hear things," he said simply. He took a step closer, and she pressed herself harder against the wall. "I know you owe them money. I know why. I know about your mother's heart surgery." The alley seemed to shrink around her. This couldn't be happening. How could this stranger know so much about her life? "What do you want?" she whispered. His eyes were unreadable in the darkness. "I want to offer you a solution." "A solution?" "Your problems could disappear," he said calmly. "All of them. The debt. The threats. The video. Even your mother's ongoing medical expenses." Corinne struggled to breathe. This had to be a trap. It had to be. "Why would you help me?" she asked. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." He stepped closer again, close enough now that she could smell his cologne, something subtle and expensive. "I know you're trapped by people who enjoy watching you suffer. I know you're working yourself to exhaustion to pay a debt that keeps mysteriously growing. I know you kiss strangers in bars because you feel you have no choice." Corinne swallowed hard. "What would you want in return?" For the first time, something like a smile touched the corner of his mouth. It wasn't warm. It wasn't reassuring. It was the kind of smile that made her wonder if she was jumping from one trap into another. "I haven't decided yet," he said quietly. The alley fell silent except for the soft rumble of the SUV's engine. Behind him, a car door opened, and the silhouette of a large man appeared, a driver or bodyguard, waiting. Corinne felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her. This man, this stranger, was offering to solve all her problems. But nothing came for free. Especially not from someone who moved through the world like he owned it. She had a choice to make. Trust the devil she knew, or the one she didn't. "Get in." Park nodded toward the black SUV idling at the end of the alley. Corinne hesitated, every warning bell in her head going off at once. Getting into a stranger's car was literally the first thing her mother had taught her never to do. "We can talk here," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. Park's expression didn't change. "It's 40 degrees out here. And what I have to say isn't for anyone else to hear." As if on cue, the back door of the SUV opened. Corinne could see the warm light of the interior, the soft leather seats. A small voice in her head screamed that this was how people disappeared. But a louder voice reminded her that she was already disappearing, piece by piece, day by day, under Veda and Sloane's control. 5 minutes, she said finally. Just to talk. Parks simply nodded and waited for her to walk ahead of him. The inside of the car was nicer than any place Corinne had ever been. Soft leather seats, warm amber lighting, and that new car smell mixed with something expensive, cologne or maybe just money itself. A privacy partition separated the front seats from the back. In the driver's seat sat a broad-shouldered man with a buzz cut who didn't turn around or speak. Another man stood outside, scanning the alley like he was expecting trouble. Parks settled across from her, his posture relaxed but alert. Up close, in the warm light, Corinne could see his face more clearly. He was younger than she'd thought, maybe mid-30s, with sharp cheekbones and eyes so dark they absorbed light rather than reflected it. Your mother had emergency heart surgery 3 months ago, he said without preamble. The insurance covered part, but you were left with $43,000 in medical debt. You had less than $5,000 saved. Your co-workers, Veda Rollins and Sloane Jeffries, offered to lend you $15,000. No interest, no rush. Corinne's mouth went dry. How do you know all this? I know things, Parks said simply. I know they've been using that debt to control you. Making you work extra shifts. Taking your tips. Threatening your job if you don't comply. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. It looked thick. I'm prepared to pay off your debt. All of it. Right now. Corinne stared at the envelope, then back at Parks' face. Why would you do that for me? Because I want something in return. Of course he did. No one just hands out money for nothing. What exactly do you want? Corinne asked, her guard rising again. Parks studied her face for a moment before answering. Information. What kind of information? I own several properties in this neighborhood, including the building next to your lounge, he explained. Recently, I've had reason to believe someone at your workplace is helping a competitor of mine. Using the storage room for meetings. Moving product through the delivery entrance. Creating problems for my business. Corinne frowned. Are you talking about drugs? For the first time, something like amusement flickered in Parks' eyes. No. Counterfeit electronics mainly. Knockoff luxury items sometimes. The drugs belong to different organizations. So you're... Corinne trailed off, unsure how to ask a man if he's a criminal to his face. I'm a businessman with various interests, Parks said smoothly. Some more official than others. Corinne tried to process this. And you want me to what? Spy on my coworkers? I want you to observe, he corrected. Things you already see during your shifts. Who uses the storage room after hours? When deliveries arrive that aren't on the schedule? Which customers speak privately with your manager? Why me? She asked. Why not just have one of your guys do it? Parks' gaze was steady. Because you're already there. Because no one notices waitresses, they look through you, not at you. And because you have reason to want certain people at that lounge to face consequences. Corinne's mind was racing. Part of her wanted to throw the car door open and run. This was crazy. Dangerous. Possibly illegal. But the larger part of her, the part that was tired of being owned, tired of the constant fear, tired of watching her mother ration her heart medication because they couldn't afford refills, that part was seriously considering it. Freedom from Veda and Sloane. No more debt hanging over her head. Her mother getting the care she needed. All for just watching things she already saw every day. But nothing was that simple. Especially not when it involved men who traveled with silent drivers and bodyguards. Men who somehow knew your entire life story without ever meeting you. What happens to the people I tell you about? She asked quietly. Park's expression didn't change. That depends on what they've done. Will they get hurt? I'm not interested in violence, Park said. It's bad for business. But people who steal from me face consequences. Corinne met his gaze. And if I say no? Then I drive you home, and we never have this conversation again. He placed the envelope on the seat between them. But your situation remains exactly as it is now. The weight of his stare was almost physical. He wasn't threatening her. He wasn't pushing. He was simply offering a choice and waiting to see what she would do. Corinne thought about her mother, about the pills she crushed into smaller doses to make them last longer. About Veda and Sloane's mocking laughter. About the video they now held over her head. And she thought about this strange, dangerous man who had allowed her to kiss him, who knew her secrets, who was offering to make her problems disappear. I have conditions, Corinne said finally. Park raised an eyebrow slightly, the only indication he was surprised. I won't do anything illegal, she continued, finding her courage. I won't help you hurt innocent people. I'll tell you what I see, but that's it. No planting evidence, no setting anyone up. A flicker of something, respect, maybe, passed across Park's face. And I want my mother to see a proper cardiologist, Corinne added. Not just her debt paid. Park studied her for a long moment. Then, unexpectedly, his mouth curved into a slight smile. It transformed his face, made him look almost human. You're negotiating with me, he observed. Corinne lifted her chin. Is that a problem? No, he said. It's refreshing. He extended his hand across the space between them. Large, steady, scarred across the knuckles. A hand that had known violence but was offering something else now. Do we have an agreement, Corinne Vance? She hesitated only briefly before taking it. His grip was warm and firm. Yes. Park picked up the envelope and handed it to her. It was heavy in her hands. $10,000, he said. Pay them tomorrow. In public. Make sure they count it in front of witnesses. Corinne's eyes widened. This is the beginning, Park said. The rest when our arrangement is complete. She nodded, stunned by the weight of the envelope, the weight of what she'd just agreed to. As she reached for the door handle to leave, his voice stopped her. And Corinne? She looked back. The next time someone dares you to kiss a stranger. Park's eyes held hers, something unreadable lurking in their depths. Choose more carefully. The way he said it sent a chill down her spine. Like he knew something she didn't. Like this wasn't the beginning of their story at all, but the middle of something that had started long before tonight. Corinne barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Park's face, heard his voice, choose more carefully. She kept the envelope under her pillow all night, one hand always touching it like it might disappear if she let go. $10,000. More money than she'd ever held in her life. When morning came, she counted it 3 times just to be sure. Neat stacks of hundreds, real as anything. She tucked the envelope into the inside pocket of her purse, right against her body. The whole way to work, she could feel it there, warm and heavy like a secret heartbeat. The lounge was quiet when she arrived for the afternoon shift. Just the cleaning crew finishing up, a bartender stocking bottles, and Mr. Patterson in his office with the door closed. No sign of Veda or Sloane yet. Corinne changed into her work uniform with shaky hands, the purse never leaving her sight. They showed up 20 minutes later, laughing about something on Veda's phone. Probably the video of Corinne kissing Park. They barely looked at her as they changed, already planning which of their tables they'd make her cover tonight. Oh, Corinne, Veda called as they were heading out to the floor. Table 12 is coming in at 7. They're big spenders but terrible tippers. I told them you'd be their server tonight. Actually, Corinne said, her heart hammering against the envelope in her purse, I need to talk to you both. Now. Something in her tone made them pause. What's wrong, sweetie? Sloane's fake concern dripped like poison. Upset about last night? He didn't follow you home, did he? She laughed like it was the funniest joke. Corinne took a deep breath. I have your money. Their smiles froze. What money? Veda asked, suddenly wary. All of it. Corinne unzipped her purse, right there in the staff area where the bartender could see, where the busboy was pretending not to listen. $10,000. That's what I still owe you, right? Plus a little extra for your trouble. She pulled out the envelope, opened it just enough to show the cash inside. Veda's eyes went wide. Sloane's mouth actually fell open. Where did you get that? Veda hissed, stepping closer, trying to block the view from others. Corinne held her ground. Does it matter? You're getting paid. It absolutely matters, Veda insisted 10 minutes later, after dragging Corinne into the storage room for privacy. Nobody gets 10 grand overnight without doing something illegal or dangerous or both. Sloane stood by the door, arms crossed, eyes narrow. Did you steal it? No. Corinne clutched the envelope tighter. Then what? Drugs? Did you sleep with someone? Is that it? My aunt, Corinne lied, just like she'd practiced all morning. My mom's sister in Atlanta. I finally told her about the situation. She sent the money. Veda's eyes narrowed. Your aunt suddenly has $10,000 to give away. The same aunt who couldn't help with the surgery in the first place. She sold her car, Corinne said, the lies coming easier now. She's getting married next month and her fiancé has a better one. She wanted to help. Sloane snorted. That's the biggest load of crap I've ever heard. Take it or leave it, Corinne said, holding out the envelope. But if you leave it, you're never getting your money. Veda snatched the envelope and thumbed through the bills quickly, counting under her breath. Her eyes kept darting to Corinne's face, suspicious. It's all there, Corinne said. Fine. Veda tucked the envelope into her own bag. But don't think this changes anything between us. Sloane smiled, slow and mean. We still have that video of you sexually harassing that customer. That doesn't go away just because you paid up. Corinne's stomach dropped. Of course. She should have known better. Delete it, she said. I paid what I owed. We're done. Veda laughed, the sound echoing off the storage room walls. Oh honey, we're done when we say we're done. The rest of Corinne's shift passed in a weird blur. Something had changed, not just between her and Veda and Sloane, but in how she saw everything around her. Had that customer in the corner always stayed for 3 hours without ordering more than one drink? Had Mr. Patterson always disappeared into the storage room so often? Had the delivery guy who came through the back always carried that same small bag? She found herself watching everything, everyone. The bartender who kept checking his phone, the cook who sometimes stepped outside for exactly 7 minutes, the regular in the expensive suit who never seemed to talk to anyone but always left $100 tip. It was like someone had pulled back a curtain, showing her a hidden world that had been there all along. And all the while, she felt Park's presence, not physically, but like a shadow at the edge of her awareness. She kept expecting to see him walk through the door. Kept feeling like someone was watching her. By the end of her shift, her nerves were shot. She jumped when her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Unknown, tomorrow. 2 p.m. Unknown, 34.0522 degrees north, 118.2437 degrees west. Unknown, come alone. Corinne stared at the screen. Those had to be coordinates. She copied them into her map app with shaking fingers. A restaurant downtown. Expensive. The kind of place where celebrities were photographed. Her thumbs hovered over the keyboard. Should she answer? Acknowledge? Before she could decide, another text came through. Unknown, you did well today. He had been watching. Corinne quickly locked her phone and shoved it into her pocket. On her break, she had tried searching for Park Woo-bin online. Nothing. No social media. No business listings. No news articles. It was like he didn't exist. Yet he knew everything about her. And now she was meeting him at one of the most exclusive restaurants in LA. What had she gotten herself into? Who is he? Corinne nearly jumped out of her skin. Veda was standing in the doorway of the locker room, blocking her exit. Who is who? Corinne asked, trying to sound confused. Don't play dumb. Veda stepped closer, her eyes cold. The money. There's no aunt in Atlanta, is there? Corinne swallowed. I told you. Stop lying. Veda's voice was sharp enough to make Corinne flinch. Nobody gets that kind of cash overnight without doing something. So who is he? Who's your new benefactor? I don't know what you're talking about. Veda's laugh was harsh. You think we didn't see you in that alley last night? Talking to the guy you kissed? Corinne felt the blood drain from her face. That's right. Veda's smile was triumphant. Sloane went out for a smoke break. Saw you getting into a fancy black car with him. So I'll ask again, who is he? And what did you do to get that money? It's none of your business, Corinne managed. Oh, it absolutely is my business. Veda stepped closer, backing Corinne against the lockers. Because that video? It's still on my phone. And I'm thinking maybe Mr. Patterson would really like to see it. Or maybe that mysterious boyfriend of yours would like to know what you get up to at work. The threat hung in the air between them. You got your money, Corinne said quietly. Just leave me alone. Veda smiled, her eyes cold. You still don't get it, do you? You still belong to us. Money or no money. Don't forget that. The restaurant was like something from another world. Corinne had driven past places like this before, but never imagined going inside one. The valet took her beat-up Honda with the same respectful nod he'd given to the Bentley ahead of her. Like her car wasn't an embarrassment. Like she belonged there. She stood frozen for a moment on the sidewalk, staring up at the elegant sign, Lumiere. No prices listed on the menu displayed outside. That was never a good sign for someone who counted every dollar. Ms. Vance? A host in a perfect suit appeared at her elbow. We've been expecting you. Please, follow me. Corinne smoothed down her simple dress, the nicest thing she owned, which suddenly felt completely inadequate, and followed him through the main dining room. Crystal chandeliers. White tablecloths. Celebrities trying to look like they didn't want to be noticed. Instead of stopping at one of these tables, the host led her through a discreet door at the back, down a hallway lined with what looked like actual oil paintings, and finally to a private dining room. Your guest is waiting, he said, opening the door with a small bow. The private room was smaller than she expected. Just one table, windows overlooking a garden, soft music playing from hidden speakers. Park Woo-bin sat alone, calmly drinking tea from a delicate cup. He wore a charcoal gray suit that probably cost more than her yearly rent. He didn't stand when she entered. Just watched her with those dark, unreadable eyes. You're exactly on time, he said, setting down his cup. I appreciate punctuality. Corinne remained standing just inside the doorway, unsure of the protocol. Should I sit? Park gestured to the chair across from him. Please. As she sat, a waiter appeared from nowhere with a teapot. He poured her a cup of something that smelled like flowers and sunshine, then vanished without a word. "How did you know I'd come?" Corinne asked, wrapping her fingers around the warm cup. Park's mouth curved slightly. "Because you're practical. And because you paid your debt in public, which means you're now looking for protection." If you're enjoying this story so far, now's the perfect time to hit that subscribe button to make sure you catch all my stories just like this one. It takes just a second, and it means the world to me. Smash that subscribe button and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. Now, let's see what Park has planned. Without warning, Park pulled 3 photos from an inside pocket of his jacket and laid them on the table between them. "Do you recognize these people?" Corinne leaned forward to look. Her stomach dropped. The first photo showed Mr. Patterson, her boss, talking to someone whose face was just out of frame. The second showed Marco, the delivery guy who came 3 times a week. The third was of a customer, the one who always sat in the corner and barely drank his drinks. "They all work at the lounge," she said carefully. "Yes." Park's finger tapped the photo of Mr. Patterson. "Your manager meets with the same man every Tuesday night in the storage room. The deliveries arrive Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:15 p.m. And this gentleman," he tapped the customer's photo, "ensures everything moves smoothly." Corinne frowned. "Moves what smoothly?" "Counterfeit electronics. Primarily phones and tablets. Sometimes luxury watches." Park said it like he was discussing the weather. "They're using your workplace as a distribution point. The storage room for meetings, the delivery entrance for product, the customer base for connections." "How do you know all this?" "I know because it's my territory they're operating in." Park's voice didn't change, but something in his eyes hardened. "Without permission. Without paying for the privilege." Corinne tried to process this. "And you want me to do what exactly?" "Confirm what I already know. Tell me if the patterns change. Let me know if new players appear." Park sipped his tea. "I need to understand the full scope of their operation before I address it." "I don't want to get involved in anything illegal," Corinne said, setting her untouched tea down. "You already are involved," Park pointed out. "You work there. You serve these people drinks. You clean the room where they conduct business. That's different." "I didn't know." "And now you do." Park leaned forward slightly. "I'm not asking you to do anything illegal, Corinne. I'm asking you to tell me things you see in the normal course of your workday." Corinne shook her head. "If it's drugs." "It's not drugs," Park interrupted. "I told you. Electronics. Counterfeit goods. The drug trade belongs to different organizations. More volatile ones." Corinne studied his face, looking for lies. "Why do you care so much about fake phones?" For the first time, Park looked almost impressed. "A good question. I care because this is my territory. I care because these operations use my shipping routes without permission. And I care because the people running this particular enterprise are threatening my legitimate businesses." "Legitimate?" "I own 7 legal businesses in Los Angeles," Park said calmly. "Import-export. Real estate. Restaurants. All properly registered and taxed. All employing local people. All contributing to the economy." He didn't mention his illegal businesses. He didn't have to. "And you're promising I won't be in danger?" "You observe. You report. That's all." Park's gaze was steady. "Nothing in your routine changes. No one will know you're helping me." The waiter returned with a small plate of elegant pastries. Park waited until they were alone again before speaking. "There's something else we need to discuss." Corinne tensed. "Here it comes. The real price." "Your co-workers," Park said. "Veda and Sloan." Corinne's fingers tightened around her teacup. What about them? They're still threatening you. Still holding that video over your head. It wasn't a question. Even after you paid your debt. How did you? I told you. I know things. Park's eyes never left her face. They cornered you in the locker room yesterday. They're still trying to control you. Corinne felt cold all over. Are you having me followed? I'm having them followed, Park corrected. For your protection. I don't need protection, Corinne said automatically. Park's expression didn't change. They have no intention of deleting that video. They enjoy the power too much. Corinne stared down at her tea, saying nothing because there was nothing to say. He was right. I can handle them, Park said quietly. Permanently. The way he said permanently sent a chill down Corinne's spine. She looked up sharply. What does that mean? It means they would no longer be a problem for you. Park's voice was calm, matter-of-fact. They would understand that continuing to threaten you would have consequences they're not prepared to face. I don't want them hurt, Corinne said quickly. Park tilted his head slightly, studying her. After everything they've done to you? I don't want anyone hurt because of me, Corinne insisted. Not even them. Something shifted in Park's expression. Not quite a smile. Something more complicated. That's unusual, he said finally. What is? Compassion for people who have shown you none. He sounded genuinely curious. Most people in your position would want revenge. I'm not most people. No, Park agreed softly. You're not. The meeting was coming to an end. Park had given her a burner phone, more secure than texting your personal number, and instructions to call only if she observed something out of pattern. As she gathered her purse to leave, Park's voice stopped her. Your mother's medication isn't working as well as it should. Corinne froze. Excuse me? The generic version she's taking. It's causing side effects. Dizziness. Fatigue. Park spoke with the confidence of someone stating facts. She needs a different treatment protocol. How could you possibly know that? Corinne's voice was barely above a whisper. I know many things, Park said simply. I can arrange for her to see a specialist. Dr. Kong at Cedars-Sinai. He's the best cardiologist on the West Coast. Corinne stared at him, speechless. She would receive the best care. The best medication. Park continued, his voice matter-of-fact. No cost to you. Why? Corinne finally managed. Why would you do that for me? Park's gaze held hers, and for the briefest moment, something warm flickered in those cold eyes. Because I find you interesting. The way he said it, soft, almost intimate, made Corinne's heart skip a beat. This wasn't just business anymore. This was something else entirely. Something deeper and more dangerous than counterfeit phones or lounge storage rooms. And as she walked out of that restaurant on shaky legs, Corinne knew she was wading into waters far deeper than she'd ever imagined. Corinne had never paid much attention to the storage room before. It was just another part of the lounge, a place for extra bottles, cleaning supplies, broken chairs waiting to be fixed. Now, she found herself casually lingering nearby whenever she could, counting how many times the door opened and closed. Mr. Patterson, it turned out, visited that room exactly 4 times per shift. Always at the same times, 6:15, 8:30, 10:45, and midnight. Always for exactly 12 minutes. Always locking the door behind him. The deliveries were even more obvious now that she was actually looking. Marco, the delivery guy, came through the back door Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:15 p.m. sharp. The boxes he brought were always the same size, small enough to carry under one arm. He never needed help. Never asked for signatures. Just nodded to the cook, disappeared into the storage room for 5 minutes, and left. Most interesting was the customer, a middle-aged man in expensive suits who sat in the corner booth 3 nights a week. He'd order a whiskey neat, take one small sip, and then just wait. Different people would stop by his table throughout the night. Brief conversations. Sometimes an envelope would change hands under the table. Sometimes a handshake that lasted a little too long. Corinne kept track of it all in her head, trying to look normal, trying not to stare. She'd memorize the details and text them to Park later using the burner phone he'd given her. It was like seeing the world with new eyes. Patterns everywhere. Connections she'd never noticed before. The problem was, she wasn't the only one watching. "She's acting weird." Corinne heard Veda's whispered comment as she passed by the server station. Sloane nodded, both of them tracking her with narrowed eyes. Ever since Corinne had paid off her debt, they'd been watching her like hawks. Not the casual cruelty from before, something more calculating now. Something suspicious. Twice, Corinne caught Sloane following her on breaks. Just happening to go outside when Corinne did. Just coincidentally, using the restroom at the same time. Always with her phone out, always ready to record if Corinne did anything strange. "You're awfully interested in Mr. Patterson's schedule," Sloane commented casually one evening after Corinne had lingered a bit too long near the storage room. "Something you want to tell us?" "Just trying to catch him to ask about my hours," Corinne lied. "You know how he is, always rushing around." The lie didn't land. She could tell by the way Sloane's eyebrow arched slightly. The worst moment came when Corinne returned from serving a table and found Veda hunched over her open purse in the staff room. Veda didn't even try to hide what she was doing. "Looking for gum," she said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Corinne said nothing, just zipped her bag closed and took it with her for the rest of her shift. The burner phone was hidden in her car, thankfully. But the message was clear, they didn't trust her anymore. They were looking for proof of something. She felt trapped between two dangerous forces, Park on one side with his quiet power, Veda and Sloane on the other with their desperate need to control her. And she was just trying not to get crushed between them. At the end of her Thursday shift, Corinne sat in her car and typed everything into the burner phone. Her fingers moved quickly, documenting the patterns she'd observed all week. Tuesday meeting lasted longer than usual. 17 minutes. Man with silver briefcase. Never seen him before. Marco brought 2 packages today instead of 1. Corner booth customer made 3 phone calls after meeting with Patterson. Seemed angry. She hesitated before adding. "Veda and Sloane are suspicious. Watching me. Searching my things." The response came less than a minute later. "Stay away from the lounge tomorrow night. Call in sick. Do not tell anyone why. Destroy this message." Corinne stared at the text, her heart suddenly pounding. What was going to happen tomorrow night? Was someone going to get hurt? Were people going to be arrested? She typed back. "What's happening tomorrow?" 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally. "Nothing you need to witness. Trust me." Corinne felt cold all over. She wanted to demand more information, but something told her he wouldn't give it. She deleted the messages as instructed and drove home, her mind spinning with possibilities. Whatever was coming, it was big enough that Park wanted her far away from it. And that was terrifying. Corinne called in sick the next morning. Faked a stomach bug, apologized profusely to Mr. Patterson who seemed annoyed but didn't argue. She spent the day in her apartment, jumpy and nervous, checking her phone every few minutes. No messages from Park. No updates. Nothing. At 9:17 p.m., she turned on the local news out of habit more than anything else. The headline made her drop the remote. Breaking: police raid upscale Koreatown lounge in counterfeiting bust. Footage showed police cars surrounding her workplace. Officers in tactical gear entering through the front and back doors. People being led out in handcuffs, including Mr. Patterson, his face pale with shock. The reporters stood outside, microphone in hand. According to sources, authorities have been investigating this establishment for months as part of a larger operation targeting counterfeit electronics and luxury goods. Tonight's raid followed an anonymous tip that included detailed evidence of illegal activities. Corinne sat frozen on her couch, barely breathing. Several arrests have been made, including the manager and other staff members. Police say they seized over $300,000 in counterfeit merchandise and evidence of money laundering operations. They showed Marco being put into a police car. The corner booth customer with his head down, trying to avoid the cameras. 3 other men Corinne recognized as regular business meeting customers. No sign of Veda or Sloan. As the report continued, the reality hit Corinne like a truck. Park hadn't just known about the counterfeiting operation, he'd orchestrated its takedown. He had connections with the police. He had the power to make all this happen with a single, anonymous tip. And her observations had given him the final pieces he needed. She turned off the TV, her hands shaking. How deep was she in this now? What would happen to her? Would anyone connect her to the raid? She was still sitting there, mind racing, when the knock came. 3 sharp raps on her apartment door. Aggressive. Angry. Corinne froze. It was nearly midnight. No one visited her this late. The knocking came again, louder this time. She crept to the door and looked through the peephole. Veda stood in the hallway, her usually perfect makeup smeared, her eyes wild with rage. She pounded on the door again. I know you're in there. Open up. Corinne's heart hammered in her chest. She thought about pretending not to be home, but Veda had clearly seen the lights on. Slowly, she unlocked the door, keeping the chain in place, and opened it just a crack. What do you want? She asked. You stupid bitch, Veda snarled, her voice low and dangerous. Do you have any idea what you've done? Before Corinne could respond, Veda's arm shot forward, pushing against the door. The chain snapped with surprising ease. As the door swung open, Corinne stumbled backward. That's when she saw it, the glint of something metal in Veda's hand. A knife? A gun? Veda stepped inside, slamming the door behind her. You're going to pay for this, she said, advancing slowly. One way or another. You ratted us out, Veda said, her voice shaking with rage. You told someone about the deliveries, about Patterson's meetings. About all of it. Corinne backed up until her legs hit the coffee table. The metal object in Veda's hand caught the light again, definitely a knife. Not a big one, but sharp enough to do damage. I don't know what you're talking about, Corinne said, trying to keep her voice steady. I called in sick today. I just saw the raid on the news. Don't lie to me. Veda's face was flushed, her eyes wild. You've been acting weird for days. Watching everything. Hovering around the storage room. And then suddenly you're sick on the exact day the police show up. Come on. Corinne's eyes darted to her phone, lying on the couch just a few feet away. Too far to reach before Veda could get to her. Veda, you need to leave. Now. Before. Before what? The voice came from behind Veda. Sloan stepped into the apartment, closing the door behind her. Before you call your new friend? The one you met in that fancy black car? The one you've been texting from that second phone you think we don't know about? Corinne's blood ran cold. They knew about the burner phone. They'd been watching her even more closely than she realized. Who is he, Corinne? Veda demanded, stepping closer, the knife now clearly visible. Who did you go running to after we made you kiss that guy at the bar? Was it the cops? The FBI? I didn't go to anyone, Corinne insisted, though her trembling voice betrayed her. I don't know anything about the raid. Sloane laughed, a harsh sound without humor. Right. You pay off a mysterious debt overnight, start watching everything like a narc, and then coincidentally the place gets raided. We're not stupid. Corinne was trapped between the coffee table and the wall, with Veda blocking the path to the front door and Sloane guarding the hallway that led to the bedroom and bathroom. No way out. No weapon to defend herself. Just two angry women with nothing left to lose. What are you going to do? Corinne asked, fighting to keep her voice from cracking. Stab me? That'll solve everything. It might make me feel better, Veda said, her grip tightening on the knife. You don't understand what you've done, Sloane said, pacing back and forth across the small living room like a caged animal. Do you have any idea what kind of people we were working with? What happens to people who mess up their operations? I told you, I didn't do anything, Corinne repeated. Stop lying. Veda slammed her free hand down on the coffee table, making Corinne jump. We know you did this. And now we're screwed. Why? Corinne asked. You weren't arrested. I saw the news. They only took Patterson and the delivery guy and some customers. Veda and Sloane exchanged a look. We were part of it, Sloane finally admitted. Not the main part. Not the counterfeit stuff. But we were skimming money. Corinne stared at them. What? Patterson let us in on a side deal, Veda explained, the knife lowering slightly as she spoke. We'd cover certain shifts, serve certain customers. Keep our eyes open, our mouths shut. In exchange, we got a cut. That's why we needed you to cover our tables, Sloane added. So we could handle the real business. That's why we needed control over you. The debt, Corinne whispered, understanding dawning. You never intended for me to pay it off. Of course not, Veda said like it was obvious. We needed the leverage. We weren't the only ones, Sloane continued. There were 6 of us altogether. Different shifts, different jobs. Patterson had a whole system. And now it's blown, Veda's voice turned hard again. The police have records. Names. Patterson will talk to save himself. And the people he works for, the real bosses, they're going to want to know who messed everything up. Corinne's mind raced. Veda and Sloane weren't just angry, they were terrified. They thought they were going to be blamed for the raid by whoever was really behind the counterfeiting operation. Whoever had been using the lounge as their distribution point. Whoever Park had just taken down. So what now? Corinne asked. You kill me, then what? Veda's hand tightened around the knife again. We need to know who you talked to. We need proof it was you, not us. Look, Corinne said, trying to sound calm, reasonable. If you're really in danger, running from the police isn't your biggest problem. You need to get out of town. No kidding, Sloane snapped. But we need money for that. And our safety deposit just got arrested. I could help you, Corinne offered, seeing a possible way out. I have some savings. Not much, but enough to get you bus tickets. Somewhere far from here. Veda's eyes narrowed. And why would you help us after everything? Because I want you gone, Corinne said honestly. I want this over. For a moment, it seemed like they might actually consider it. Veda's grip on the knife loosened slightly. Sloane's posture became less aggressive. How much money are we talking about? Sloane asked. About 2,000, Corinne said. It's in my bedroom closet. I can get it for you right now. Veda hesitated, then nodded. Fine. But try anything stupid, Anne. I know, Corinne interrupted. Knife. Stabbing. I get it. She edged slowly around Veda, moving toward the hallway where Sloane stood. Her bedroom was at the end of that hall. Her bedroom with a window that led to the fire escape. If she could just get to that window. Both of you stay here, Corinne said, trying to sound casual. I'll get the money. I don't think so, Veda said. Sloane, go with her. Corinne's heart sank. So much for that plan. Fine, she said, trying to think of another way out. As she turned toward the hallway, Corinne made a split-second decision. She lunged forward suddenly, shoving Sloane as hard as she could. Sloane stumbled backward, caught off guard by the unexpected move. Corinne sprinted for the front door. If she could just get outside, scream for help, someone would hear. She felt a hand grab her hair, yanking her backward. Pain exploded across her scalp as Veda dragged her away from the door. You stupid, Veda didn't finish the insult. Instead, she slammed Corinne against the wall, bringing the knife up to her throat. Big mistake, Veda hissed, her face inches from Corinne's. Corinne felt the cold metal against her skin, the slight sting as the blade pressed just hard enough to threaten without breaking skin. She closed her eyes, certain that this was it. This was how it ended. Then the door exploded inward. The sound was deafening in the small apartment. The door hit the wall with such force that a picture frame fell and shattered. Two men burst in, large men in dark suits, moving with the precision of professionals. Veda spun around, knife still in hand, but she was too slow. One of the men grabbed her wrist, twisting until she cried out in pain and dropped the blade. The other man had Sloane pinned against the wall before she could even process what was happening. And then, walking calmly through the broken door like he was entering a business meeting, came Park Woo-bin. He looked exactly as he had in the restaurant, perfectly composed in an expensive suit, not a hair out of place. The only difference was his eyes. They were colder now, harder, focused entirely on Veda, who was still struggling in his bodyguard's grip. The apartment fell silent except for Veda and Sloane's panicked breathing. I believe, Park said, his voice soft but carrying easily in the quiet room, you're threatening someone under my protection. Veda stopped struggling, her face going pale as she recognized him. You, she whispered. You're the guy from the bar. The one she kissed. Park didn't acknowledge her words. He looked past her to where Corinne stood frozen against the wall. Are you hurt? He asked, his voice gentler than Corinne had ever heard it. She touched her throat where the knife had been, checking for blood. Nothing but a slight scratch. I'm okay, she said, her voice shaking. Park nodded once, then turned his attention back to Veda and Sloane. His expression shifted, all gentleness gone in an instant. The knife, he said to his bodyguard. The man immediately handed it over. Park examined it briefly, then slipped it into his pocket. Sloppy, he commented. Amateur. We weren't going to really hurt her, Sloane said quickly, eyes wide with fear. We just wanted to talk. Park's smile was chilling. With a knife at her throat? An interesting conversation technique. The men bound Veda and Sloane's hands with plastic zip ties. They didn't struggle anymore. The fight had gone out of them the moment they realized who Park was. Corinne leaned against the wall, still trying to process what had just happened. How had Park known she was in danger? How had he gotten here so quickly? The apartment is secure, sir, one of the bodyguards reported after checking the other rooms. Park nodded. Take them to the car, he instructed. We'll be down shortly. The men led Veda and Sloane out of the apartment. Neither of them looked at Corinne as they passed. When they were gone, Park turned to her. Are you certain you're not hurt? He asked again. Something in his tone made Corinne look up. His face was carefully controlled as always, but there was concern in his eyes. Real concern. It seemed out of place on someone so ruthless. I'm fine, she said. Really? Just scared. Park nodded. That's understandable. How did you know they were here? Corinne asked. I had someone watching your apartment after the raid, Park explained. A precaution. When they saw these two enter, they called me. What's going to happen to them? Corinne asked quietly. Park studied her face for a long moment. When he finally answered, his voice was both gentle and completely serious. That depends on you. Corinne had never seen the city like this before. From Park's penthouse, Los Angeles sprawled out in every direction, a glittering sea of lights that seemed to go on forever. Floor-to-ceiling windows wrapped around the entire space, making her feel like she was floating above the world. The penthouse itself was nothing like she'd imagined. Not cold or sterile like in movies. Not flashy with gold fixtures or tacky luxury. Instead, it was surprisingly warm, dark wood, soft lighting, clean lines. Expensive but understated, like the man himself. Park had insisted on bringing her here after what happened at her apartment. It's not safe there tonight, he'd said in a tone that didn't invite argument. Corinne had been too shaken to protest. Now she sat on a leather couch that probably cost more than her car, holding a glass of water she hadn't touched, while Park rummaged through what looked like a first aid kit. You have a cut, he said, returning to sit beside her. On your neck. Corinne's hand went to her throat. Her fingers came away with a tiny smear of blood, just enough to remind her how close she'd come to something much worse. It's nothing, she said. Park ignored her, gently tilting her chin up with one hand. Hold still. There was something surreal about being tended to by a man who radiated such power and danger. His touch was surprisingly gentle as he cleaned the small cut with an antiseptic wipe. His fingers were warm against her skin, careful, almost hesitant, like he wasn't used to touching people this way. There, he said, applying a small bandage. It's not deep. For a brief moment, his eyes met hers, and Corinne saw something unexpected there. Concern. Maybe even guilt. Thank you, she whispered. For coming when you did. Park nodded once, then moved away, giving her space again. I should have anticipated they would blame you for the raid. What's going to happen to them? Corinne asked after a long silence. Park stood by the window, looking out at the city, his reflection ghostly in the glass. That's what I meant when I said it depends on you. I don't understand. He turned to face her. Their fate is in your hands, Corinne. She stared at him. What does that mean? It means exactly what I said. Park's voice was calm, matter-of-fact. You decide what happens to them now. Corinne set her water glass down with shaking hands. I don't want that kind of power. I'm not like you. I don't make decisions about people's lives. You already are, Park pointed out. By not choosing, you're still making a choice. He moved back to the couch, sitting across from her. Veda and Sloan have stolen from very dangerous people. They skimmed money from an operation run by the Quan organization, my competitors. People who don't show mercy, ever. The ones you took down tonight, Corinne said. Park nodded. Only part of their operation. The Quans are still looking for someone to blame. They'll start with Patterson, but they'll work their way down the chain. Eventually, they'll find your former friends. The weight of what he was saying settled on Corinne's shoulders. So if you let them go, they'll likely be dead within a week, Park finished for her. The Quans are thorough. And if they don't go free? They stay in my custody. Protected but contained. Sent far away with new identities. Corinne struggled to process this. Why are you giving me this choice? Why not just decide yourself? Park's expression softened slightly. Because they hurt you. Because this is your story, not mine. And because I want to see what you'll do with power when you finally have it. The irony wasn't lost on her. For months, Veda and Sloane had controlled every aspect of her life. Now, with a single word, she could control theirs. It felt terrible. It felt intoxicating. "What would you do?" she asked. "That's not relevant," Park said. "I'm not you." They sat in silence for a while, the weight of the decision hanging in the air between them. Finally, Corinne asked a different question. "Who are you really? Not just a businessman with various interests. The real story." For a moment, she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, surprisingly, he did. "I came to America 10 years ago," Park said, his voice quieter than usual. "My family has connections in Korea. Old money, old power. I was sent to establish our interests here." "Sent," Corinne repeated. "Not by choice?" A slight smile touched Park's lips. "Very perceptive." "No, not by choice. I was the second son. The expendable one." "What happened to the first son?" "He runs the family business in Seoul. The legitimate side. I was given the more complicated tasks." Corinne studied his face, seeing it differently now. "But you built something of your own here." Park nodded. "I did. Started with what my family wanted, connections to move certain goods through certain channels. But I saw opportunities they didn't. Built legitimate businesses alongside the other operations. Real estate. Import-export. Restaurants. And now? Now I'm working to transition everything to legitimate enterprise." His eyes met hers. That's what the raid was really about. Removing competitors who make legitimization difficult. Establishing relationships with law enforcement. Creating a new narrative. "Is that even possible?" Corinne asked. "To just walk away from that world?" "It's complicated," Park admitted. "There are expectations. Obligations. People who don't want me to change the status quo." Something clicked in Corinne's mind. "That's why you were at the lounge that night. You were scouting it as part of your plan against the Kwons." "Yes." Park's eyes didn't leave her face. "And then you walked up and kissed me." The memory made her cheeks warm. "On a dare." "On a dare," he repeated, something almost like amusement in his voice. "You changed everything with that kiss. You have no idea." "I have a proposition for you," Park said after another comfortable silence. Corinne tensed automatically. "What kind of proposition?" "Not what you're thinking," he assured her. "A job offer." "A job?" "I need someone I can trust to help manage my legitimate enterprises," Park explained. "Someone intelligent. Someone who sees patterns. Someone with integrity." Corinne almost laughed. "And you think that's me? A waitress with no business experience?" "I think that's exactly you." Park leaned forward slightly. "You noticed things at the lounge that my own people missed. You maintained your moral center even when pushed to your limits. You've shown loyalty, resilience, and an uncommon kind of strength." He said it with such conviction that Corinne almost believed him. "What exactly would this job entail?" "You'd start as my personal assistant," Park said. "Learning the businesses from the inside. Eventually, you could manage one of the restaurant operations or the real estate office. Whichever interests you more." "And my mother?" Corinne asked. "Would receive the best medical care available. Dr. Kong at Cedars-Sinai, as I mentioned before. A comfortable place to live near you. Everything she needs." It sounded too good to be true. "Why are you doing this?" Park's expression turned thoughtful. "Because you remind me of something I've forgotten. That there are people who hold on to their humanity even when the world gives them every reason not to." He paused, then added more quietly, "And because I need someone like that in my life if I'm going to build something better." The offer hung between them. A new life. Security. Purpose. Freedom from the constant struggle to survive. I need time to think, Corinne said finally. Park nodded. Of course. As the night grew later, Corinne finally made her decision about Veda and Sloane. Let them go, she said, her voice steady. But make sure they never return. Make sure they understand what will happen if they ever try to contact me or my mother again. Park studied her face. You're showing mercy to people who showed you none. I'm not doing it for them, Corinne said. I'm doing it for me. I don't want their fate on my conscience. Something like approval flickered in Park's eyes. He nodded once. It will be done as you wish. The weight that had been pressing on Corinne's chest lifted slightly. She stood up, suddenly exhausted. I should go home. You can stay in the guest room tonight, Park offered. It's safer. I'll have someone take you home in the morning. Corinne hesitated, then nodded. Thank you. As Park showed her to the guest room, a space bigger than her entire apartment, he paused at the doorway. There's one more thing you should know, he said quietly. About that night. Corinne frowned. What night? The night you kissed me. I knew who you were before you kissed me, Park said quietly, standing in the doorway of the guest bedroom. I'd been watching you for weeks. Corinne stared at him, trying to process his words. What do you mean? Park's expression remained calm, but something in his eyes softened. I'd been monitoring the lounge for some time. Planning the move against the Kwans. I noticed you early on. Me? Corinne shook her head in disbelief. Why would you notice me? Because you were different, he said simply. You worked harder than anyone else. You never complained. And you had this sadness that you tried to hide. Corinne felt suddenly exposed, like he could see right through her. That's creepy, you know. The corner of Park's mouth lifted slightly. Perhaps. But it's the truth. He moved into the room, maintaining a respectful distance. I saw how they treated you. Veda and Sloane. I watched them force you to take their shifts, take your tips, humiliate you. I was already planning to approach you with an offer. What kind of offer? Similar to what I proposed tonight. A job. A way out. Park's gaze was steady. I was waiting for the right moment. Then why didn't you stop me? Corinne asked, remembering the kiss. When I approached you at the bar? If you knew it was a dare? Curiosity, he admitted. I wanted to see what you would do. How you would handle it. A brief pause. I didn't expect you to actually go through with it. Corinne felt her cheeks warm with the memory. So that whole time, you already knew everything about me? About my mother? The loan? Park nodded. Not everything. But enough. Why tell me this now? Because if we're going to work together, Park said, we need to start with honesty. In the morning light, Corinne saw Park differently. The ruthless businessman, the dangerous power player, those sides of him were still there. But now she saw other things too, his careful consideration before speaking, the way he listened like every word mattered, the respect with which he treated everyone from his bodyguards to the woman who delivered breakfast. They sat across from each other at a glass table overlooking the city, drinking coffee and discussing her future. Their conversation flowed easily, as if they'd known each other for years instead of days. I still don't understand why me, Corinne said, cradling her coffee cup. You could hire anyone. Someone with actual business experience. Park considered her for a moment. Experience can be gained. Integrity is either there or it isn't. You barely know me. I know enough, he said with that quiet confidence that was becoming familiar. I know you took on crushing debt to save your mother. I know you endured months of abuse rather than give up. I know you chose mercy for people who deserve none. Something warm unfurled in Corinne's chest at his words. How strange that this man, this dangerous, powerful man who lived in a world so different from hers, seemed to understand her better than people who'd known her for years. There's something between us, Park said suddenly, his directness catching her off guard. I think we both feel it. Corinne didn't deny it. There was no point. That doesn't make it a good idea. Perhaps not, he agreed. But it's there all the same. Their eyes met across the table, and Corinne felt that peculiar pull again, the same one she'd felt in the bar before the kiss. A recognition of something. A possibility. We should be careful, she said softly. Park nodded. We will be. As we reach the end of Corinne and Park's story, I want to thank you for coming on this journey with me. If you enjoyed this story so far, now's the perfect time to hit that subscribe button to make sure you catch all my stories just like this one. It takes just a second, and it means the world to me. Veda and Sloane were waiting in a secured apartment across town. Corinne insisted on being present when Park spoke to them, though she stayed behind one-way glass where they couldn't see her. You have a choice, Park told them, his voice colder than Corinne had ever heard it. You can start new lives far from here, with new identities and enough money to begin again. Or you can take your chances with the Kwans, who are currently looking for everyone involved in the operation I just dismantled. Veda, who had been so fierce in Corinne's apartment, looked small and terrified now. We'll take the new identities, she said quickly. Park nodded. Wise decision. But understand this, if you ever contact Corinne Vance or her mother again, if you ever return to Los Angeles, if you ever speak a word about what you've seen or heard, there won't be a third chance. One of Park's men stepped forward with their phones. Delete the video, Park instructed. All copies. Now. They complied without hesitation, hands shaking as they erased the last piece of leverage they had over Corinne. Who are you really? Sloane asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Park didn't answer directly. He simply looked at her until she lowered her eyes, understanding without words that she'd been playing games in a world she didn't comprehend. You leave tonight, he said. Everything you need will be provided. Consider this your only warning, and your only mercy. As they were led away, Corinne felt a strange mix of emotions, relief, justice, and a lingering sadness for lives so consumed by greed and cruelty that they'd lost sight of everything else. Are you satisfied? Park asked when he joined her. Yes, Corinne said. It's over. 6 months later, Corinne stood by the window in her office, looking out at the Los Angeles skyline. Not from Park's penthouse this time, but from the 14th floor of a building he owned in downtown LA, where she now worked as operations manager for his restaurant group. Her life had transformed so completely that sometimes she barely recognized it. Her mother was living in a beautiful condo nearby, receiving treatment from the best cardiac specialists in the country. Her health had improved dramatically under their care. Corinne herself had moved into a spacious apartment in a secure building. She'd taken to her new role with surprising ease, discovering a talent for organization and management she'd never had the opportunity to develop before. Park had been right about her ability to see patterns, to understand people, to anticipate needs. And Park, their relationship had evolved slowly, respectfully. Professional during work hours, but after, dinners, conversations that lasted until early morning, a deepening connection that neither rushed nor denied. He never pushed. She never felt pressured. They were building something real, something based on mutual respect and understanding. Ready? Park's voice came from her office doorway. Corinne smiled and grabbed her coat. Ready. The lounge looked different now. Renovated, elevated, with better lighting and a more sophisticated atmosphere. Park had bought it 3 months after the raid, turning it into one of the most exclusive spots in Koreatown. They sat at a corner table, the same corner where the counterfeiter used to sit, Corinne realized with a small smile. What's funny? Park asked, noticing her expression. Just thinking about how much has changed, she said. Last time I was here, I was serving drinks, not drinking them. Park nodded, his eyes moving around the space. Does it feel strange to be back? A little, Corinne admitted. But good, too. Like coming full circle. They fell into comfortable silence, something they'd both grown to appreciate about each other. No need to fill every moment with words. Finally, Park asked the question she could tell had been on his mind. If you could go back to that night, the night of the kiss, would you still take that dare? Knowing everything that would follow? Corinne didn't need to think about it. In a heartbeat, she said. Some kisses are worth the risk. Park smiled, a real smile that transformed his usually serious face. He reached across the table, taking her hand in his. The moment was perfect. Almost too perfect. That's when Corinne noticed a man enter the lounge, Korean, expensively dressed, with a cold, calculating expression that reminded her of how Park looked that first night. The stranger's eyes locked on Park immediately, narrowing with recognition and something darker. Park felt the shift in her attention and turned slightly. His entire body tensed, though his expression remained carefully neutral. Park? Corinne whispered. Who is that? Park's grip on her hand tightened almost imperceptibly. His voice, when he answered, was so low she barely heard it. My brother, he said. The one from Seoul. The brother's gaze shifted to their joined hands, then to Corinne's face. Something like a smile curved his mouth, not warm, not friendly. The kind of smile that promised trouble. We need to go, Park said quietly. Now. The perfect circle had just been broken. And Corinne realized their story was far from over. If this story touched you, made you think, or just kept you entertained, please hit that subscribe button right now. Your support helps me bring more stories like this one to life. I'll see you in the next story, which is part 2 of this story, where we'll find out what happens when Park's worlds collide, and Corinne gets caught in the middle.